All right, so here's a list of all the pros. And now we've got a list of all the cons. All right, so not gonna lie, that was a little bit more of a nightmare than I anticipated. That alone by itself, why I'm gonna just rip this thing back out. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and another video. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we're doing something pretty exciting. At least I think it's exciting anyway. We're going to upgrade the head unit in my 2017 Ram. So I've been flip-flopping back and forth on exactly what to do with this for a while now, and I just could not settle on exactly how I want to attack this. So it has the 8.4 UConnect system in here, but it was the year before or year prior to them releasing Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So this system cannot be upgraded. You can't hook anything to it. I've tried to see if there was like Bluetooth adapter, wired adapter, anything like that. Just struck out completely, couldn't find anything. So I really wanted to try to get Android Auto in this vehicle. My wife's Jeep has it, love it, and if you followed along with the channel and some of our other videos, I just finished doing 2 sponsored videos on Android head unit replacements in my son's truck. So we actually did an Anon upgrade video. I'll leave all the links down below to what we've purchased for this video, the sponsored videos that I've done in case you want to check those out. They work fantastic, but there's kind of a couple of reasons why I haven't gone that route. So the Anon unit is excellent. It's working flawlessly, looks great, functions great, but they don't have one that works with my auto air conditioner controls in this. So this is the upgraded UConnect system with the auto AC controls and everything, and they don't have one that works with that yet. Hopefully they'll come out with one because they have great products. Anyway, so I couldn't go that route. So the other one was a Linkswell T-style radio setup that they sent us and we installed. It works great too. So if you're in the market for something like that, it would be a good choice. The reason why I didn't go with that, even though it has the really huge screen, is you do lose all of your buttons for the air conditioner, your radio control knobs, everything, and I just didn't want that for my particular setup. Again, works great for his setup and everything, no problem with it, but it really depends on your taste and what you're after. So didn't go that route, so I started doing some research, looking at some other options. I'll try to keep this intro a little bit shorter, even though I do kind of want to tell you why I went this way ultimately. So got on Amazon, did a lot of research, watched a lot of videos, read a lot of articles, and finally just settled on a Android-based head unit that retains your factory auto air conditioning controls, your radio knobs, and everything. So I'll leave the links down below again, like I said, so you can check out exactly what I found. These things are super budget friendly. I think with the coupon I clipped on there, all in, I was in like maybe 130 bucks. So if you're not looking to break the bank, just want to find something hopefully to add Android Auto CarPlay, this is probably a great alternative for you if you're not wanting to spend that. It comes with the CAN bus adapter and everything. I'll show you what I got on the bench here in a second, and retains a lot of the factory steering wheel controls, all of your other stuff and everything. I'll show you some of the things I'm concerned about potentially losing by upgrading to this radio, and then we'll see how it turns out after we install it. And yeah, so let's go ahead and start ripping the dash apart. I'll show you what we got on the bench and got to install, and we'll get to it. So again, if you find it entertaining or interesting, leave it a like. I'd super appreciate it. Consider subscribing. We're doing all kinds of stuff like this, upgrades, sponsored videos, travel, hobbies, vacations, all kinds of stuff. You might find something else you want to watch on the channel. But yeah, let's get to it. And if you got any questions, leave them down below. So I wanted to show you just a few things that I'm concerned about missing with this stock existing factory radio. One of the reasons, again, is I wanted to keep these factory controls because it does control a lot of the stuff. The T-style and everything gets rid of all of these buttons and everything, puts it all on the screen. So I wanted to do something that kept this stuff down here. So, and on top of that, some of the other controls that are found on the radio can be found down here. So like the heated seats, steering wheel, and whatnot, those can also be triggered through the head unit, but I'll keep those buttons. And then of course my AC controls I really wanted to keep here as well, so I could adjust all of that with buttons. And then the volume knob, I don't know if the tuner knob or this browse knob will still work. We'll test it out. I'm not sure what it'll do or if we can program it with the new one. But anyway, getting off topic. So some of the stuff I'm concerned about being missing on the new one. If we go into controls, again, here we've got the heated seats, wheels, a backup camera, mirror dimmer. So I don't know if there's anything about mirror dimming, and I don't think you can do that on the mirror itself. So that might go away. And then if you go into settings, and then we have all of the specific kind of vehicle settings in here. So the display, voice, clock, that'll be, you know, standard on the new radio. But then you have safety and driving assistance. So here's where you can turn on different things for the backup camera and hill start assist. So that may possibly go away if we go back. Then you've got your lights on here. So you've got headlight display, headlights with wipers, flashlights with door lock. So I don't know if any of this type stuff exists in this Android head unit, or if you can add it on, or if there's a app or anything. But you've got your doors and locks here as well. So a lot of different specific stuff about how the vehicle locks and unlocks, and with the key fob and all that good stuff. Let's see what else. We've got auto on comfort. So you can turn on your heated seats and steering wheel when it hits a certain degree. When it gets cold enough, it'll automatically come on. You know, again, I don't know if any of this type of stuff is in there. Engine off options. You've got some delays and stuff on there. A trailer brake. You can set up custom trailers through here. Now my trailer brake controller is down here, so you can do that, but you can have multiples in here and pick which one you want to have your current one, so you can set that up. So I'm pretty sure that's not going to be there. And then the rest of the stuff will of course be fine on the new head unit. So just a few different things I was going to show you that I'm kind of concerned about losing going aftermarket. But if I went with an aftermarket like Kenwood or Pioneer or anything like that, you probably wouldn't have those options either. It's only if you're going to stay with the factory UConnect system. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with, and what we've got to see if it's going to be a headache once we get the new head unit in, and how everything works out. Might not miss them at all. Side note too, I've done some JScan app things through the Bluetooth OBD2 port on here. So maybe you can control that and update them through that app as well, and don't even have to worry about the head unit being missing anymore. But we'll get it all installed, see what we got, see what we're missing, and go from there. So here's what we're working with. I know that was kind of a long intro, but I wanted to kind of tell you some of the background of what we were dealing with, why we went with what we went with, all the different options that you can find out there. Now, full disclosure, most of all of these head units are probably the same underlying. They're all kind of Chinese, Android-based head units. There's not going to be a ton of difference to it. Where you get into some of the differences are the power behind them. So the gigabytes, the processing power, the storage, the memory on board, all that kind of stuff is where you'll start spending more money. So I don't recall, I think this was like 2 gigs of RAM or something like that, and then 32. I'll leave the link in the specs in the description for you, where I got it off of Amazon. This one, as you see, comes with the auto AC controls and your knobs, so we do have to take all of that stuff off the factory OEM radio and transfer it to this one. Hopefully it won't be too bad. I've already removed those trim rings. I'll pop that video clip in here in a second to show you about that, talk more about that. So we got to deal with that. And then here's all your wiring stuff. So they have everything labeled pretty good. You've got some of your microphone, your trim panel tools. You do have a user manual that goes into detail about some of the settings and how to adjust settings. You've got your GPS antenna for some of your onboard map capabilities, if you want to use something like that versus your Android Auto or Google Maps. You've got an extra adapter for Bluetooth and wireless, and a camera input, your contact support info, USB connectors and everything, external speaker, radio adapter, and then we've got our USB adapter here. I think this will convert and connect our console USB information here, and our main wiring harness with all of your other connectors, the CAN bus adapter that's going to take control or use for the steering wheel controls, and all of our factory options is going to be here, and then all of our other hookups are here too. So one of the reasons why I ended up going this way is I actually purchased this Amp Pro interface because I'm in the process of adding a subwoofer to this vehicle to replace the crappy factory Alpine subwoofer. It's just not doing it, so I want to upgrade it. And so I purchased this to kind of put in line and have all of the connectors and have 3 sets of amp outputs and all of that stuff. And then I got to thinking, well, it's still not going to do anything for me for my head unit, so let's get something that I can just wire directly to it. So in this, I actually have a subwoofer out here, and I purchased a splitter, even though I probably don't really need it. I purchased a RCA splitter so I can hook up my amp wiring kit that I've got in the box right here and get ready for the subwoofer upgrade. It also comes with another set of pre-outs for another amp if you want to hook to it. Unfortunately, it doesn't say anything about the power output. Now, the Headunit system that we did, they had a set of 5-volt preamp outputs on their system. No mention of the power that this thing is sending out. Hopefully, it'll be good enough, and I won't have to go back to a different router or anything. But yeah, everything's labeled really good. The instructions don't do a great job, full disclosure, of telling you exactly what's what and where it goes. But if you notice, every connector has a different set of number of connections on it. So there's really only one way to plug all these things in. And then if we look at the back of the radio, let's flip it over. There's your main wiring harness power plug, and then here's all your connectors there. So you really can't go wrong with this. And then there's your radio and your GPS, and that's that. So should be pretty straightforward getting this hooked up, especially since we already done 2 in the other truck. Went pretty good. So now we'll jump into the truck, tear the console apart, and get started on putting this thing in. So I've got the radio on my desk taking a look at these trim pieces. So I have seen in some reviews and other videos for head units and these custom made pieces like this for the gauges and everything and the controls, that some of the buttons will get hung up on this trim piece here, and you have to be kind of cautious of that. On top of that, this is kind of a flat silver. It doesn't look bad, it looks pretty good, but everything in my truck it's got the chrome trim on it, which I'm not a huge fan of chrome, but since it's like that already, we're going to leave it like that. So we're going to try to pop these off. I don't know if they're just pressed in there, if they're glued in there or what, so we'll get one of them off, kind of take a look at it, and then show you what we got to do to get the other one off. And then we'll have to get the chrome trim off the truck without breaking it, and then replace it on here. If you look really closely right here, there's actually a little bit of a defect in here anyway on this stock silver trim piece. So we'll get that off anyway, so we don't have to deal with it and look at it and get it to match what was from the factory. Here's a look from the back side, so you can actually see. Let me point to it with my tweezers here. You can actually see right there, there is a hole there and there. There's one right there. And you can see where they kind of plastic welded or melted the tabs down on this trim. So what I did was I actually used the trim tool that came in the kit and was able to pry this piece out. So there's the piece that came out. Again, there's the one that has the defect in it right there, but you can see it has these little plastic trim pieces that stick through those holes, and then the 2 on the top actually did get melted down there and there. And so we'll have to see what the one in the actual truck that came from factory, what it looks like. But I was able to use that little trim tool and pop these right out. So we'll get the other side, clean it up a little bit, and we'll be ready to pop the ones from the truck, the chrome trim pieces, back in. Might have to use some super glue or something to hold it in on these back sides to make sure it doesn't fall out or rattle. Alright, so we got both sides out now. You can see kind of where they melted the plastic to hold those trim pieces in. That might actually be what causes some of these buttons to stick. If you notice right here on the corner, that bit of melted plastic right there, there's a little bit of overhang here, there's some here. I'm not sure. Again, I haven't got the switches and stuff in here yet, so it might have just been the silver ring itself that was catching on the buttons, or it could have been some of this melted plastic welding that they do to keep this stuff in there that causes it. You can see it over here too, kind of overlapping on the side. So I'll take a file to that and clean it up just to make sure we got everything nice and neat, so nothing will catch once it's in there, so we don't have to take it back apart. Everything else looks really clean. I don't see any other burrs or pieces hanging off of anything else, so I think we're good there. So now I just got to see if the ones in the truck pop out the same way and get those transferred over here. All right, to start with, we took our trim panel tool that came in the kit with the radio, but anything will work, and we popped out the little plastic cover right above there. We've got some Torx bits, screws. Let's see what this says, if I can read it. A T20. Can't really see it. T20 is what we need to pop these out, and then I think there's one back here behind this little cubby hole, and then we've got to also pop this out here, remove it, and I think there's another screw under here. Then we've got to remove the sail panels on the side to get this whole thing out. In my son's truck, it was a lot easier because this console isn't here, so you can just pop this whole thing out right off the bat. With this big old bright LED light in here, it sure does show just how nasty and dirty everything is. So while it's out and apart, you can get it all cleaned up too. So we'll pop all this loose, take it apart, and we'll be one step closer. Might be hard to see, but there's one back there in the back corner that's holding us in too. We've got to take out, and then this little tray just pops right out at the front, and you've got that loose. Then we'll worry about this console piece down here in the bottom next. Well, this just changed everything up. So the Torx bits up front, up top in the little cubby tray, Phillips head screws down here, and what is this? A 7mm bolt down here. So got to take those two out, this one out, then we should be able to pry this lid up. Not too bad at all. Those two screws, Phillips head screws, were in there tight in the front. I was surprised how tight they were. The little bolt came right out, and then I just pulled right up on this corner, and the whole thing popped up. So now we can just kind of pull it up and out of the way. We've got this DC connector power back here, so that's probably a wire that's holding it in place. We'll have to kind of pull it up, take a look underneath, maybe unplug that to get it out the way. You might not even really have to take it all loose. You could probably just leave it like that, just enough to clear this and these side panels over here to get this loose. So this front piece will come off. So let's see what we got, and if I need to unplug this to get more clearance. Not much to it once you get that loose. There's a little push connector right on the end there that you can unplug it and remove that whole thing out the way if you want to. I think in some trucks there's a shifter area here, automatic shifter in some of the consoles. Obviously mine doesn't have it. You got the good old rotary shifter here, but I think that's what all this was for. But got that out of the way, and a lot of room under there. And so I think we have to take these little sail panels off. I think they just pop right off because this tucks in below on both sides. And then we should be able to just pull right on this and disengage and pull it straight out. I'll put a cloth down here so I can kind of rotate it out, and we'll drop it, and we'll be able to start unhooking some stuff. All right, so we got the dash cover console removed. You just pull straight out on the edges of these, and it'll disengage from the clips. I did another removal on the other radios that I've linked down below if you want to follow along with that, a little closer detail. It's pretty straightforward. The bottom corners are kind of tucked in there in a way that you have to kind of fish it out, but not too bad. I unplugged the AC control wire here just to give it a little more slack to lay down, and then now we've got 4 7mm bolts holding the radio in, so we'll take those loose, pop the radio out, disconnect all the wires behind it. Then we'll be ready to start taking the trim panel piece out. You've got a bunch of Phillips head screws around it, so we'll take all of those out, and that'll take this trim bezel off, and that's where the new radio will mount to and screw back to. So we'll take all that loose and then see what we got. Here's our wiring all disconnected. I think that's our radio antenna, our USB adapter for the console. I think this is the satellite radio. This may be the reverse camera. I'm not sure. I'll have to check into that. And then our main wiring plug harness right here. And so this has a little paddle flip style connector you have to release and then pull up, and it locks into place. You can kind of see the grooves on the side, and then your main wiring harness will come loose right there. So that's everything that you have to take loose from the radio. This is why you can't put a lot, well, you can, but it's a lot more difficult. You can't put aftermarket radios like Kenwoods and other stuff like that, because you have to cut this bracket because they're too deep. They won't go in there. So that's another reason why these Android radios are a little bit easier option. I won't necessarily say better, but easier option than some of the aftermarket head units like Kenwood and whatnot. So we've got our existing or factory bezel out, just those Phillips screws like I was saying around the corners. So we got all that out, pop right out. So now we got to get this AC module and this control module out and transferred over to the new radio. But I shouldn't open my mouth just yet. Going pretty smoothly so far. There's some little catches on the side here that you got to pry open to get this back panel cover off, and then we'll see what we got inside and what we got to do next. So that was way more annoying than it should have been. These four came out just fine, but this one was stripped from the factory. It just would not sit down in there flush, and I didn't have a different bit size than these. Had one too big, one too small, and this one fit just fine, so that ended up being a pain. But once you get the screws out, you just pop the little connectors on the side, and then there's your cover, comes off, and your circuit board and all the stuff that you got to get out in order to transfer over to here. So now we'll just keep on plugging away at it. Alright, so not gonna lie, that was a little bit more of a nightmare than I anticipated. So in order to get this circuit board and everything to release and come off, you have to take these knobs out first. And if you notice right there, let's see, right there, there's one, there's two, if I get it to focus, and there's three little catches. You can see that they have kind of little teeth on the inside, and they catch on the inside of this circuit board where they hook up. And so there's a window. You can see there's a little window right there on the top and a window right there on the side, and you can get a flathead screwdriver or a pry tool or something in there and pop those loose. Not gonna lie, I had to get my wife to actually pull straight out on these and rotate them so I could try to release each one of them, and then they pop straight out. So now we got to get that transferred over. We can finally take our circuit board out and everything and get the rings and all that good stuff transferred over. But yeah, that was kind of a pain in the butt for what we got going on here, but we got them out. Here's our circuit board out. Now you want to be really careful that you don't bend these pins or break them off in this process of trying to get everything loose. Once you get those knobs released off of here, that's where they were snapped on. This will just come out as a unit, should go right back in here. We've got to get our little glow rings, I think, for the ambient lighting, and we've already taken off, shown in that other part of the video, or if not, I'll pop it in here. We took the silver rings off that came on the radio, and we're going to transfer over our chrome rings to make sure they match everything else for all these knobs and everything. Keep everything looking good. So we got to get these off, transferred over those, and then start putting everything back together. Alright, well that was only a little bit of a nightmare. So finally got everything put back together. I need to put a little bit of super glue or something adhesive on this trim piece here. Make sure it doesn't pop back off. This one went back in perfect, but I think the little feet that hold this in into the holes were warped just a little bit to put it back in, so it's not wanting to stay, but no big deal there. Everything else is working fine. All the buttons I've tested for clearance, everything's mashing just fine and working. Well, not working, but mashing fine and clicking and doing what it needs to do. So I think we're good to go there. Now we got to just start wiring some stuff up, plugging it up, and we'll get it back in the truck. Alright, so we got everything installed in the truck. It goes right back in the same place as the trim piece that you unscrew with the Phillips screws. It pops right in. It's got some tabs. Align all the screw holes and screw it back in place. The wiring, like I was saying, they really can't go but in one place in this particular model because that's the only way they'll fit the number of pins and everything. So they'll go in, and then we've got our GPS antenna installed right here. We've got our radio antenna, regular radio. I've got my 3G connection, my old 3G connection, and the satellite radio, if it would focus, tucked out of the way back in the back because we can't use those again. We've got our camera to the cam CVBS out, or plus, excuse me, from the main factory wiring harness, plugged into our camera pigtail for this one connection that has a Bluetooth and a wireless antenna that's plugged into the main motherboard. Let's see, what else do we have? We've got our subwoofer out here to a RCA splitter to my amp installation kit. And I also have my amp turn-on wire hooked up to my amp installation kit for the next phase. Again, subscribe if you want to follow along with that. We've got our USB adapter plugged into our factory USB. Now, full disclosure, I'm going to go over a few of the little headaches and problems I have so far that I've run into in testing this. I cannot get this to work for the center console, so I'm going to leave it plugged up. I've got a support email into the people that I bought this from. Going to see what they say or what they come back with. Hopefully they come back with something, but I do have an email into them asking about that. The other two radios I mentioned before in my son's truck, this worked perfect. He's got a console set up too. It's not the full center console like this one is, but he's got a console with a USB port in it, and it lit up and worked fine. This one is not working. I don't know what the deal is. There's really only one place it can plug into, so I think I got everything right, so we'll see what they say. We've got the GPS antenna, like I said, screwed into the mount there, and I have it mounted up under the dash right here with the sticky, and I tested it out before we put everything back together, and it's picking up satellite reception just fine, so I think I'm good there. Everything else is hooked back up, plugged up. We've got a lot of leftover RCA inputs, camera inputs. This is our speaker connection for our microphone, and I have it over here until I put this thing back in because I ran out of slack where I have it mounted up here on the edge. But I did go ahead and test it. It seems to be working okay, just fine. We'll have to give it some more tests to see how the quality is. So far it seems okay, so I'm going to leave it alone and just try it out. May have to upgrade this to a little bit better one, but again, at the moment, seems to be all right. So I think that's everything. Main wiring harness is plugged back in. We're good to go. Air conditioner controls are all plugged in and tested. All that's working fine. So now we just got to make sure we stuff all this back in there out the way and try to snake this back in and get the clips in, and then we can show you what it looks like. So I got my dash ripped apart yet again. I pulled it all back apart. I'm getting to be a pretty good pro at doing this here. I've done it quite a few times in my truck now, several times in my son's truck. But anyway, one of the biggest issues I have with this radio, and I've talked to the tech support people and they said to try this, try that, and I've tried it all. I cannot get the sound to come out full volume out of my front speaker. So again, this is the Alpine system with the factory amp. I don't know if that's the problem or if there's something in this particular head unit software setup. I don't know. But the rear, this is the quad cab, and in the rear I've got a set of Infinity 6x9 3-ways, and then the ceiling speakers are back there too, right there, and it sounds phenomenal. It sounds great, and if I could get the entire truck to sound that way, it would be a really good upgrade in sound quality, but I just cannot get the front to play right. There is sound coming out of the front, but it's like maybe a quarter, a third of the volume of the rear. So you can definitely tell that everything is coming out of the rear. Well, you say, well, why not just adjust the fade? Well, here's some YouTube cleared music. So we'll put it on 1. We'll go over here to our fade settings. And if you start, we'll turn it up just a little bit. If you can even hear that in this video, it's still coming completely out of the rear speakers, so the quad cab part of the truck, and almost nothing. We can come over here. There is basically nothing coming out of the front speakers. So I talked to them about it again, and they were like, oh, you need to connect the amp wire speaker from the main power harness to the amp wire speaker on your RCA inputs into the back of the head unit. I did that. Didn't work either. Nothing's working, and so that alone by itself is probably one of the major reasons why I'm gonna just rip this thing back out. So after all this trouble moving, yes, my trim piece, I didn't glue it in because I was already having some trouble out of this thing. So I said, you know what, I'm not gonna put that in permanently because I may end up snatching this back out. And I think the ultimate verdict is this thing's coming back out. There's just too many other things that's going on with it that I'm just too peculiar about, and I think it's gonna drive me insane, that it's just not worth it for me. So I'll take it out, put the other one back in, then I'll give you kind of a final thoughts and updates on what did work, what didn't work, and where we're going next. So here's yet one more thing that's kind of annoying about this head unit. been in for a couple of days now, trying to give it the benefit of the doubt and do some testing and get some bugs worked out and some tweaks and things, and watching some other videos online. But yeah, so here's some YouTube copyright clear music I've got on there, and we'll put it in reverse. And there goes the music, not withstanding the crappy video quality on the backup camera. I'm not real thrilled about that, but we'll put it back into park. And here's our music starting again and everything. Now, what's crazy about that is if you go back to the home settings and we go to general and we go right here, it says audio, mute audio when reversing. I have it off. Now this was on, and you can even sound reduction while reversing, and you can set it to different max volume or tweak the volume. I have everything off, and it was working perfectly. And now here we are a few days later. Let me turn it down so you can hear a little bit better. Here we are a few days later, and it's completely ignoring the settings that's in the head unit now. So it was working fine. I don't know what's happened. Nothing was changed, but now those settings don't work anymore. So let's try it really quickly and see what's going on. So if we turn it back up, and we'll turn it on. Well, we can't even click that now. I don't know what that's about. We'll put it into reverse. Our music's gone. Put it back into park. Music's back. Turn it off. It's still gone. So whatever was causing that to work correctly now doesn't work at all. So well, there's just one more thing to add to the list. Something else that I also found out and wanted to share with you guys. This is not quite as big a concern, but I at least wanted to point it out too. So again, this is the upgraded one with all of the automatic air conditioning controls and everything. And so all the buttons still work and everything. But if you change the temperature up or down on the passenger side, so this is the dual climate control system. So if you change it, it will automatically change it on the screen like it's supposed to, but now you lose the sync, and I don't know of any way to get it back. There is no sync button. So if we then adjust the temperature on the driver's side, it is not adjusting on the passenger side anymore. The sync is off. So I don't know how to turn that back on, or if there is a way. These buttons are not clickable. You can't click anything on the screen. Whoops. And so, yeah, everything else works all right, but that's really only because I have the buttons for everything. So the heated seats, the steering wheel, defroster, temperature, fan speeds, all of that works, but you will lose the sync. And drop me a comment down below if you know how to get that back. I don't know if there's any kind of manual app or something you can add to here to manually control your ACs. I doubt it, since everybody's different, but it's just one more thing to add to the list that you will kind of lose. Well guys, it's back out of the truck. Here it is, back on the workbench again, everything taken apart. So what I was trying to do, and what they told me to do when I reached out to support, is there is a blue amp wire, and no, I did not connect it permanently because I figured this wasn't going to work. There is a blue amp wire, which I think from everything else I've seen is just your power amp turn-on lead for like an aftermarket amp or whatever. But they were like, hook it to the wire coming out of the RCAs, and that should maybe turn on the factory Alpine amp. But nothing changed. It was all the same. Thankfully, I didn't blow anything. But I just didn't think that was going to be the case, because I couldn't figure out why in the world would the rear speakers in the truck be working flawlessly, perfectly, sound still coming out of the front speakers, just not at the right volume level, matched volume level. It's like something just wasn't communicating right with that Alpine system to tell it what level or what volume fade or whatever to work correctly. Leave a comment down below if you've experienced this, figured out a way around it. I'm not going to junk this. I don't know. I may try to return it, but I'm not going to junk it. It does have its pros, but it's in my instance, it has way too many cons to kind of proceed down this route. So I'm going back to the factory radio for now, and back to square one, my original plan, installing my Amp Pro setup. So if you want to subscribe, follow along, check out that video and how that goes, I'd appreciate it. But yep, now I got to take all of this AC component mess apart and put it back in the original, and good thing I saved everything and didn't tear it to pieces trying to get it out. So guys, that was my crazy journey down the road of ripping the whole dash apart, putting in this, I hate to say it, cheap aftermarket Android head unit. It didn't go very well for me. It might go excellent for you. It probably works really good in trucks that maybe don't have the Alpine system. Like I said, you can see my son's truck in the background. We put an Headunit head unit in his Android head unit, and it is working flawlessly. So again, I'll leave that link down below. We also had the T-Style in there for a while, and it worked really well. I've done videos in the past before. Cheaper is not always better in a lot of these cases. I was hoping to hit a home run and get lucky, but I don't believe I did so in this case. So there were just too many cons. There was some pros. It looked great, bigger screen size, and overall, the Android Auto did work sometimes, but the cons just outweighed the pros by a huge margin. No satellite radio. I live in an area where I don't have really good cell reception all the time, and so relying on my cell phone for YouTube music or satellite radio, you can use the satellite radio Sirius XM app on your phone through Android Auto and play everything through the head unit just fine if you have signal. I don't have very good signal, so that wasn't a great option for me, and it wasn't really working that well. So that was a big strike because I really like my Sirius XM radio. The reverse camera on this thing, horrible. Same camera that's on the truck is stock and everything. You plug it right into the RCA input. It lags terrible. It's not in real time. It will skip and lag, and the quality is horrendous. I don't know why, because I think the screen is 720p, which I know is not 4K, but it still should be good. And using the same camera and same connections, it's horrendous. It's terrible. So that's another thing to consider. There is a lot of lag. Even like I said, the Headunit head unit in my son's truck has less RAM, less storage, and everything in it. It works so smoothly, so flawlessly. This is not necessarily a plug for them, but it's just trying to compare apples to apples. This will lag. It takes forever to switch screens, to load music when you first crank it up, especially after it's been sitting. If it's been sitting for a little while, it'll come on instantly and get going. But if it's been sitting and it kind of fully goes to sleep, it takes forever to kind of get going again. What else? The audio will just randomly skip all the time. It just playing MP3s through a flash drive, it'll just kind of skip, and almost like an old CD or something. If you hit a bump, it's just really weird. What else? Let's see. Oh, the microphone that came with it, that was really odd too. I tested it out before I put everything back together, made a few phone calls, tested stuff out. It worked great. I didn't have any weird feedback. Sound quality was good, so I was kind of excited that, I got one win. Then a couple of days later, I've had this in for about a week or two because I wanted to actually give it a chance and test it and do some settings, tweaking and all that. About a week or two later, just completely stopped working. When I took it apart to test this wire for the amp, I checked it. Everything was still connected. I don't know what happened. Then the issue, I think I already showed you in the video about it auto muting when you reverse. There's settings in the software to deal with that, and I dealt with it, turned it off because I hate that, and it was fine. Then all of a sudden I got back in it a day or two later, and it was muting when you put it in reverse. And so I went back to the settings, checked them. They were still set the right way, so I turned them off, turned them on, turned them back off again, and tried to save everything to kind of revalidate the settings. It didn't take it. It didn't work. So I couldn't even fix that problem now. So just a lot of really weird quirks. Some of this stuff might not be a big deal for you guys, and for the price of this, you get Android Auto and a lot of other cool features. You get a lot of customizations. You can add a ton of apps through the Google Play Store and stuff like that. So it really is a neat idea and option. It just did not work in my case. And then I said this too about the air conditioner. If you like to have your zones synced, Once you mess with the passenger side, it unsyncs them, and I don't have any idea how or if you could ever get them to sync back again. So from that point on, you would constantly have to change the temperature on both sides to get it to match. You can't click on the screen and you can't fix it that way. So anyway, I've kind of gone on a long time about this, but I know a lot of you guys buy these things, and in certain situations and instances, I'm sure they're perfect and they work great for what you need them for. In mine, not so much. So I wanted to give you a real world example of what I went through to get it installed, how you can install it, some of the settings, wiring, all that stuff, and if it's really for you. Might be, might not be, but I appreciate you hanging out. Like I said, subscribe if you want to check out. I'm going to put this factory radio back in. We're going to hook up our Amp Pro interface, test that out, see if that one works, and then proceed with the rest of our sound system update. So I appreciate you hanging out with us, watching the video. Give it a thumbs up if I helped save you some money, or if you found any of it pieces helpful or whatnot. I appreciate you being here, watching it. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.